Hi guys, happy Tuesday. Welcome to the morning after. I'm Charlene Joint, your host, and today we are recapping episode 3, already episode 3 of Colton's season of The Bachelor. So as always, I'm going to start off with a moment that delivered, and just to recap, a moment that delivered is in partnership with Skip the Dishes, and if you're Canadian, you definitely know who they are. And this is a lighthearted, playful moment that is the highlight of the episode, in my opinion. And Skip the Dishes, by the way, is Canada's leading food delivery company, and they let you order meals to your home. You don't have to head out into the rain, which I'm looking at right now. I am coming to you from Vancouver, where I will be until the end of February. I'm here for an opera, so if you're in Vancouver, come to the opera. So, this week's moment that delivered. This might be a controversial choice depending on whether or not you liked Caitlyn, but for me it was Colton sending Caitlyn home on the second group date. I have to admit, when he sent her home, I was like, yes. Because my problem with Caitlyn was that she didn't stand for anything. I'm not saying she doesn't have substance, but she didn't show her substance not only in this conversation, but in the season so far. I think that when you are describing someone what you're looking for in your partner, at 25 is too old to say someone who can come out with me and my friends and have a ridiculous, silly evening. I think that you're old enough to, really have some traits in mind and to just really, stand for something. What else did I say? Oh, she said, I haven't had anything in my life that is standing out for me right now that I want to share with you. What bothers me about this is she was clearly referring to other women's sob stories or, unfortunate events or just things that had shaped their lives. And they're more than that. They're not just an event. They really do turn you into the person you are. And so I don't think you need tragedy to have an opinion on things. And, there's no excuse to not have had some tragedy in your life is no excuse for having, I wrote, a milquetoast personality. She also said, I don't know what to open up about other than the fact that, my life has been, good. You don't have to open up about anything. Just have a normal conversation. So the moment that delivered for me was when Colton took a pretty strong stance here and just was having none of it. He sent her home in that moment. He couldn't even wait until the rose ceremony. And I just love that he didn't reward this kind of, I don't want to say ditzy, but definitely, this kind of behavior. He's shown that he's drawn to stronger women, stronger personalities. He told Katie in his one-on-one time with her that he loves that she's strong-minded. No, he told Elise that she's strong-minded. I think that these are wonderful things to value in a woman, and I just love that he really followed through with that in that moment. So yes, that moment definitely delivered. And yes, Susie, thank you. Thank you, it was so painful. Okay, let's see. All right, so chronological order, as usual. So we start off with the group date, which is like a Pirates themed medieval times. Did anyone, I don't know what this is called. It's apparently a thing. It reminded me of medieval times, but it was with pirates. And this date, I've got to say, involves some of the worst, sloppiest editing I've ever seen on this show. A lot of it involving Caelynn and Hannah B. Moments where Caelynn's like, I'll save you, my captain, and then they show Hannah B it was so sloppy. It's like, did anyone actually believe that reaction was, to whatever Caelynn had just said? It was just so absurd. It's like they weren't even trying to pretend it was the same moment. This entire date revolves around Hannah B and Caelynn. I'm going to actually choose to not talk solely about that. I touch on it in my Flair recap enough, I think. So, I'm moving on. I do want to talk about Demi's one-on-one time with Colton, because for me, I'm Team Demi. I continue to be Team Demi. I don't love how she is with Colton, the whole the paddle slapping, the blindfold and stuff like that. I get that she's going for memorable and she's definitely getting airtime out of it, but it does still feel caricature-like. I don't really know who, if that's a real person or if that's even her. That said, the way she interacts with the women is not strange to me. I don't find her to be irritating, or I can see maybe it could become a little much, but I do think still that the women are overreacting. So Courtney is irritated with Demi because she talks about the tone of voice, the mannerisms when Demi takes Colton from her. Sorry, I still don't get the big deal with that. If you think she's doing it wrong, let her dig her own grave. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like every single time it's like, can I talk to you for a minute? Like, let's talk for a minute. Like, I would love to talk to you. Like, it's like always trying to flesh out their, their disagreements or how they, it's just, you don't need to. You don't need to tell someone else how they should be. You choose to whether or not you get annoyed by it, but whether or not you let it annoy you. Okay, moving on from the group date. Elise is one-on-one. So this is easily the most feel-good date I can remember. I thought this was so beautiful, how they had the kids from Colton's charity join them at this fair. It was just like, I confess, I got a little misty-eyed. It was so sweet and moving, and they were both really great with the kids. It was just really nice. And again, so Colton on Elise, he calls her strong-minded, confident, independent. I love that these are things that he values, but also that he has the ability to use these adjectives because not every lead has had that ability. And so I think Elise brings out a side of Colton that I'm into. It makes me like him more. Okay. Oh, and then in the evening, I did legitimately tear up during Elise's story about her sister. What I love about this was the way it was framed. It was not like, she was like, okay, now I will now share with you my sob story. It was more like, you could tell she wasn't going to bring it up if he didn't ask. He asked, about, what made her the way she is. And she wasn't awkward telling it, but you could tell she wasn't like, okay, I'm going to tell you this now. She was just matter of fact about it. And I found her very comforting on screen. I found her easy to watch. It didn't feel performery. It just felt authentic and like you're watching your own friend on TV, which is a pretty big compliment, honestly. When you watch someone who you think you would be friends with in real life, they're doing something right. Okay, so moving on to the second group date, otherwise known as Bachelor's Strongest Woman competition. I gotta say, these dates are always entertaining. I don't have an issue with these. Onyeka was like incredibly impressive. I couldn't believe that. Although, what was up with Kaitlyn pulling that limousine? Did anyone find that weird? I felt like it was, I don't know, in Drive or something. Something was off about that. Although there was funny music playing while Kaitlyn was like couldn't do a pull-up and she was being assisted by Catherine to do this pull-up. And there was funny music as though it was so pathetic, but I was like, I can't do a pull-up. I've never been able to do a pull-up, so just saying. If anyone else can't do a pull-up, neither can I. Okay, in the evening, there's a lot of Kaitlyn in this date. So I talked about this in the moment that delivered, but there was a girl chat leading up to this where Kaitlyn says she feels pressure. And I actually agreed with Catherine's counter argument here because she said that she doesn't agree. She said if it's natural, it'll happen. What did she say? No, she said, sorry. She said, I don't feel pressure. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen. You can't force a connection. And I completely agree with this. I have been there, and I can honestly say I never hustled for time, and I never felt like I had to force something. It either comes to you or it doesn't, and that's how it should be. And so I can see how if you're, the hustle to stay because you kind of want to stay for the experience, you want to stay on the show longer. But in terms of your relationship with him, which is, the right reason for being there, it cannot be forced for sure. Okay, so rose ceremony. How shocking that the cocktail party, would be axed in exchange for a pool party. Was anyone surprised? I feel like this happens every single episode 3. Caelynn finally gets down and dirty and fights fire with fire and tells Colton about Hannah B. because he prompts her for it. I kind of wish she hadn't done this, but at the same time, I feel like she didn't really have a choice. Like, her hand was definitely forced in this situation. And then, of course, at the rose ceremony, it's unbelievably predictable that Colton not only keeps Hannah B, but that he'd called her name last. It's so clear to me at this point that there will be a 2-on-1 with the two of them, and I say this every week, I really wish that they didn't live up to that stereotype and that expectation that 2 pageant women would not be able to get along, but it was a shame. Okay, and then finally, I was sad to see Brie go home. I feel like Brie came out strong with her Australian accent, and then we just never got to see her again. She didn't get enough airtime, and it's a real shame because the camera loved her. She had great style. I thought she was hilarious because of the Aussie accent. And yeah, we'll miss you, Brie. All right, that's it for episode 3. Be sure to read my Flare recap, and then later this week, my Pretty Pandas recap. And thank you for tuning in with me, as always, for The Morning After. I'll see you here next week. Bye.